is originally from the Arabic word kafara, which has been mentioned in the Holy Quran for about 525 times in different derived forms. Kufr means disbelief or rejection of the commands and prohibitions that bestowed by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala and da'wah that delivered by Prophet Mohamad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the messengers. Apart from that, the one that executes the kufr in the manner that refuses to believe in the greatness and authority of Allah is called kafir. Allah said in Surah Al-Baqarah verse 6, according to this ayah, whoever belongs to the disbelievers, they will reject the faith whether they have already been warned and preached by people or not. As mentioned in the next verse of the same surah, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has sealed their hearts, hearing, also even their vision with a veil, and there is a great punishment waiting for them.
Next is about the definition of shirk. So, where is the word of shirk derived from? The word of shirk derived from an Arabic root which sharaka, that means to share with someone and to include something. From an Islamic point of view, shirk means attributing an equal partner unto Allah or associating someone or something with Him. The Islamic view of monotheism, that Allah is one and nothing like Him, is clearly mentioned in the Quran, Surah Al-Shura, verse 11. From the ayah, we know that shirk is the act of associating partner with Allah in any form, whether in the deeds, belief, words, or etiquette, that is by making another living being or not an ally with Allah.
Here is the objective of this assignment. So the main objective of this assignment to have a better understanding of the concept of the shirk and kufr. It has an important component of each topic that is built of characteristic, types, factors and implications.
The ayah from Surah Maryam, verse 73, describes the one that kufur or we call as kafir. According to the Tafsir Ibn Kathir, when the ayah from Al-Quran were recited to the disbelievers in the form of da'wah, they will turn away and refuse to believe. Apart from that, they will question the one that believe in Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and then compares themselves with the Muslim. This is because at the particular moment, the believers belongs to the poor while the unbelievers comprises the rich and powerful. It causes the unbelievers to feel great and at the same time being arrogant to the believers.
Characteristic of shirk, and most of them do not believe in Allah without associating others with Him. Surah Yusuf, verse 106. According to Imam Ja'far as-Siddiq, shirk is like someone saying that if so and so hadn't been them, I would have been killed. This utterance reflects the kind of the confidence that the speaker has. If he still has such a conviction, then he is a mushrik. Some people believe that without any phenomena, they are a different God. Next is kind of kufr that have two, kufr akbar and kufr asghar. Kufr akbar is the major that drive one out of the faith, linked to the dismissal, the ignorance, vanity and modesty of the Sharia law. The example is disbelief in Allah and His Messenger, and it is disbelief that drive us further from the fold of Islam. Kufr asghar is the minor. This does not expel from the religion and makes a sinner Muslim. Judge passes judgment according to what Allah disclosed out of the deficient or an a whim, whether as a favor to others or because he is bribed.
Next, we move on to the kinds of shirk. There are two kinds of shirk, and the first is the shirk al-akbar and the second is the shirk al-asghar. The shirk al-akbar is a significant of shirk that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala will not forgive, and whoever dies while committing it will not be willing to enter to the Jannah. Or in a short term, this shirk can be clarified to worship somebody or things with Allah. For example, to pray, slaughter or vow for some tahnud at the grave, church and so on. In the features and the names, they also take faith in the similarity between Allah and His slave. In fact, those who commit such a form of shirk will become non-Muslim. Because of what? Because they do not believe in Allah. The second type of shirk is the shirk asghar. It is also prohibited by Sharia because it may lead to the major one too. This form of shirk does not bring one out of the fold of Islam and Muslim, but it is a great sin. It is also called as minor shirk because the act has not invalidated the faith, while the sins remain greater than other major sins such as killing, stealing or adultery. Usually, this minor shirk will occur when a person does something to show off. For example, to have riya, that they swear with the names other than Allah and use ambiguous words that might involve shirk.
Factors of kufur. There are several factors that causes the kufur, such as a weak religious belief. This is because a person is not exposed enough to the religious knowledge, so the parents have a big role in children's learning affairs. If the parents do not take the right step, educating the children by the religious knowledge, it will have a big impact, especially on the children's thinking. Other sides of view, teachers also play a big role in cultivating identity and strengthening the students' iman. If the teachers does not succeed instilling the importance of the iman in ourselves, the student do not get how important Islam is in us. So these factors is so much related in our daily life since childhood. So as we grow as adulthood or adolescent, our faith begins to alter or falter because it has not been too strengthened since childhood. So that causing a person is unable to distinguish between the good things and the sin. Next, the other factors is also about influenced by the lust that want the pleasure and the freedom. Narrowness of life is causes someone to willing to be commit in this belief that meet the necessity of life. So many people think that Islam has no freedom and bound, but they do not realize that they actually destroy themselves not only in dunya but also in hereafter. Thus, we can see that all the command of Allah is to beneficial us. So, a person who affected by his own lust has many losses.
As we move to the factors of the shirk, there are several factors that can cause a person to commit shirk to Allah. And first of all, when a person is dominated by lust. This is because when human nature is pure and upright, he will retrieve all the teachings of God with pleasure and strive earnestly to implement it as a form of service to God and expect His pleasure. But when a person can overcome his lust, he also feels narrow enough just to accept and obey the teachings of God and more likely to pursue his lust. Most of them tend to reject the guidance of the teachings that come from the God even if they are little hard to admit that it is true. Therefore, they also deny that God's teachings are true and make teachings or rules that are not determined by God. And then they claim that the teachings that they make are true enough to influence people and that they are more appropriate to follow than God's teaching or law. If we realize that this factor actually often occur at our surrounding where their life is dominated by their lust. The next factor is the arrogance in the worship of Allah. Arrogance is also a disease that can affect human existence in such a way that it deviates from its straight form and drops it into the polytheism. In general, the existence of arrogance it can be found in the soul of people who have successfully attained the pleasure of earthly life such as money, status, authority, science, and the like. But greed may also come from any sick soul, even from the lowest people. In the Quranic ayah in Surah Al-Baqarah verse 258, explains to us that pride also can lead to the shirk, as in the story of Namrud. That verse has illustrated the situation and nature of the arrogance of King Namrud of Babylon when he dealing with Prophet Mohamad as the messenger of God. King Namrud was endowed by Allah with the great power and dominion, but he was ungrateful for the favor, even becoming a disobedient and oppressive person. The request of God that he should used to obey God, but he used to disobey Him. By doing this, they are not pleasing to Him. Last but not least, some rulers are used human beings for their own benefits. Thus, they refuse to be judged by the laws and rules of God. Other than that, they also make their own laws and rules which are not prescribed by Allah, so that they can determine which one is halal and which one is haram by their desire and the desire of their lust. Then, because of the control that they have, the laws and regulations they make are enforced upon human beings. The rulers who they create the rules and laws that are required to be followed by their people, it makes themselves gods worship other than God, because Allah has the power to develop laws and
The
rules.
kufr has a very negative impact on the individual as it affects everything in their life, either in this world or in hereafter. Disbelievers does not acknowledge the day of judgment where they might be punished. The punishment that awaits the unbelievers can be seen in verse 64 from Surah Al-Ahzab. The verse mentioned the promise that has been made by Allah to people who do not want to believe. The worst retribution for the unbelievers is they will be cast into the fire of the hell, namely Sa'ir. From the 7 hells that have been mentioned by Allah in the Al-Quran, Sa'ir is in the top 4, which mean it is among the several punishments. Who are the inhabitants of the Sa'ir? They are the people who disobey the command of Allah and do not believe Allah and His messengers. As we know, 2 of the attributes of Allah are Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, which means the most gracious and the most merciful. For the believers, their life in the world will always be blessed by Allah, and all the sustenance given is a blessing from God. Whereas, for the unbelievers, their wealth in this world is only a temporary pleasure that causes them to be punished, as mentioned in Surah Al-Ahqaf, verse 20. The ayah above mentioned about the admonition from Allah to the disbelievers that enrich and enjoy the pleasure of the world. To illustrate, we can see that some of the rich use their power and wealth to travel abroad, but the purpose of traveling is just to have fun. They do observe the mountain, the ocean, and the clouds by their vision, but they do not use their intellect to think that it is a part of the greatness of Allah. The wealth that they have is just to distract them from believing in Allah. Thus, they will get the punishment in the hereafter commensurate with their deeds in the world.
Implication of Shirk: loss of one's Iman along with all his good deeds. In his account, there are no positive deeds at all. At this point, if someone dies without redemption after performing a sin, his eternal dwelling will be in hell, and permitted for him to have connected partner with Allah. Surah 5 verse 72. This unforgivable offense under Islamic law. Allah will forgive any sin but Shirk. How do they intend to reach heaven if they do not have the grace of Allah?
From what we can conclude, Kufr and Shirk are both off base, since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one and as a true God in Islam. A person who commits to this path will not only commit into an enormous sin, but to all the good deeds that one has done will go unsuccessful, which brought about the individual in Kufr or Shirk. Therefore, we as Muslims ought to take this as a safeguard start to end up a higher Muslim and dodge the sins which will lead us to endlessly fire within the hellfire. As for the solutions and suggestions, we should always continuously pray and seek for the fortification of our faith. Not only that, we should continue perusing the Al-Quran and Hadith for way better clarification of role as a Muslim. We should also constantly go to more religious classes or occasions in arrange to reinforce our faith and understanding in life as a Muslim. Lastly, whenever we're in doubt, we should unceasingly attempt to look for assistance for a much better understanding from a religious instructor, since they in truth do know better in this perspective.
The Islamization of Kufr is basically about Iman. So, behavior that deviates the Iman and Islam is called Kufr. So, among the causes of error and return of Kufr is the human tendency to like misguided. Eventually, he feels like he has abandoned by God and left his lust into humiliation. So, Allah said, is it He who created you? Then some of you are faithless and some of you are faithful, and Allah sees the best what you do. Surah At-Taghabun, verse 2. Meanwhile, Tawheed and Shirk are the things that contradictory and can never be combined. This is because our accountants with a fact will be more perfect if we also identify the opposite. So similarly, by recognizing the Shirk, then a person will try his best to save himself from the things that can plunge himself to the value of the Shirk, as well as damage his Tawheed. In Quran, Allah said, surely Allah does not forgive the sin of associating anything with Him, and He forgives sins other than that of Shirk. For whoever associates something with Allah, it is a sign that he has gone astray. Surah An-Nisa, verse 116. Thus, associating with Allah clearly shows that the implementation of the Shirk, let alone committing oneself as a God. So we can see that there's a lot of things that we have to be aware to save our Iman. That's all from us. Thank you.